Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of the 10 Minute Bundesliga Previews, the podcast where we give a quick 10-minute summary of each club, starting with their background, moving on to their little bit of history, talking about last season's Bundesliga performance, and then evaluating their summer key transfers, and then finally finishing with a preview and prediction for 2016-17, because the Bundesliga season is ready to start on Friday. So at number 2, it's who else? Borussia Dortmund. So Borussia Dortmund are obviously one of the biggest German clubs. Of course, has a huge membership with over 100,000 members, and they've got a prestigious history. They've won Bundesliga and the German Championship 8 times. Also have won the DFB Pokal 3 times, or the German Cup, and then 5 Super Cups, and then 1 Champions League, etc., etc. So basically, need very, very little introduction, but so in terms of their history, they had a sort of the first golden age in the 1990s with the Matthias Sammer teams with Karl-Heinz Riedle, André Müller, when beating Juventus, obviously, and then in the 21st century they went public, right? They before the bankruptcy hit them in 2002 or so, after they won their title, but they went bankrupt later that year, and had to be bailed out, of course, by who else but Bayern. So then they returned to prominence under Jurgen Klopp, who finally left after a very difficult season in 2014 and 15, and would be replaced by Thomas Tuchel, who a lot of people wondered about, and of course that takes us into last season, where Tuchel guided them brilliantly, and the club had an amazing season in terms of goal scoring and in terms of the aesthetic pleasure one gained from watching Dortmund obliterate teams in attack. But unfortunately, Bayern were too good, and unfortunately the Liverpool game ended their Europa League dreams. But still, I would say most people are incredibly happy with Dortmund's performance, and the future is very, very bright. So they scored the most goals in the Bundesliga. They've had the best attack. They had, stars like Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, Henrik Mkhitaryan, and so on and so on. Even guys like Julian Weigl. So they've got everything going for them. So let's talk a little bit about their transfers for this season, because there are a lot of transfer news. The departures are just as interesting. So 27-year-olds that they sold, Henrik Mkhitaryan and Mats Hummels, for combined 80 million to Man United and Bayern, and of course they also lost Ilkay Gündogan, so 3 of their probably 4 or 5 best players, which are going to be really difficult to replace, but Dortmund have done a really nice job of sort of making the transfer window about the guys that are on the squad, so shelling out the most money, over 100 million, and they brought in a mixture of young talent. We should go through those names first. So Ousmane Dembele, who basically tore up the French league and has been killing preseason, obliterating defenders and putting them on skates left and right. And then they also brought in Rafael Guerreiro, who just won the Euros with Portugal from Lorient for 12 million. It was going to be a great option. And then they took 2 flyers on Emre Mor, who is already showing the Turkish mini Messi comparisons, if you've seen him play over the summer. 18-year-old kid from Denmark, Turkish international. And then they also brought in Mikel Merino. This was a signing they made in February, who's a 20-year-old sort of left-footed central midfielder slash central defender from Osasuna. And then the fifth signing is not so young, but somebody who you've known from Barcelona, Marc Bartra, comes in at center back for sort of a reclamation project after years of not getting playing time. And Sebastian Rode is sort of the same idea, but center midfielder who didn't get a lot of playing time at Bayern and looks to rebuild his value. So it looked like they were spending a lot on youth and sort of rebuilding, but until they made 2 big moves towards the end of the transfer window, one of them being Mario Götze, who, of course, is the prodigal son that went to Bayern and didn't really succeed, and now has to sort of come back with his tail between his legs He came for 22 million, still a world of attacking talent, but we'll see how Tuchel can use him. And then another Tuchel favorite, Andre Schürrle, who worked with Thomas Tuchel with Mainz. He came for 30 million and from Wolfsburg. And I've written a lot about these transfers, so if you want to find those, I recommend you an article which is on sockcity.net or also on Bundespremierleague.com. You can check out the Dortmund transfers. But needless to say, I've been very active, and my sort of overall take on them at the end of the transfer window is that they've gotten obviously a lot worse in terms of losing the players, but then they've done a great job of replacing a lot of them. But I think the gap is still pretty big between them and Bayern, maybe a little bit bigger than last season. So let's talk about how they're going to line up, what to expect from 2016-17. So they have, at this point, they have an incredibly deep squad, which was one of the really big problems last season, as they were forced to play 17-year-old Christian Pulisic, who did well, but it's a problem himself when you have to play him starter minutes. So they've got Roman Bürki as their starting goalkeeper, who had kind of a disastrous half of the season in the fall, and then was okay in the Rückrunde. He's going to be a starting goalkeeper with Roman Weidenfeller. He's going to be the backup, playing in the cup games. And then they've got probably their biggest problem is the center back position, where they obviously lost Mats Hummels, one of the world's best center backs, and they've got Neven Subotic, who's injured and probably no longer wanted by the club. And their options, none of them are really that great. So Marc Bartra, who lacks probably the size and match fitness, but looked okay in the preseason. And then they have Sven Bender, who is a sort of a converted center back from a CDM, center midfield role. And then they have Socrates, who's an excellent tackler and great guy to have, but maybe not the greatest on the ball. And then they also have Matthias Ginter, who is really struggling to find the position after playing really well at right back last year in the early parts of the season. So probably they will start Socrates and Bartra. That's how they've been doing it in the preseason, and we'll see how that works. Got really good two left backs, probably I would say two of the top 10 left backs in the world, in the ever underrated Marcel Schmelzer, who's getting on at 29, and Rafael Guerreiro, who's capable of playing sort of left mid, left wing. So they did that in the preseason game earlier against Eintracht Trier, and then another game as well. They played both of them at the same time. Right back they have again Lukasz Piszczek, who is the Polish established one, and they've been playing a lot of Felix Passlack, who's a 19-year-old up and comer, who might even get to start. And then they also have Eric Durm, who's now out with an injury. Lots of midfield depth with Julian Weigl, the breakout star, the German Busquets. And then they have Gonzalo Castro, who does really well, creative playmaking. And then they have Nuri Sahin, who probably won't get a lot of playing time. And they still have Mikel Merino, who they just signed from Osasuna. And then they have Sebastian Roda, who's been playing a lot in the preseason. So probably I would expect Weigl to start, and probably Castro or Roda, one of those two. And then the attack, which is where they have incredible options now, with Shinji Kagawa still being around. And then they have Mario Götze, who would probably play an attacking mid or capable of playing on either wings. And then they, of course, have Marco Reus, if he stays healthy. That should be his permanent name. Of course, he's injured again, so they brought in Schürrle as the sort of replacement. So he'll be playing left wing mostly. And then on the other wing, they have Ousmane Dembele, who's been terrorizing everybody on the right wing. And they still have, up top, they still have Aubameyang, backed up by Adrian Ramos, with the 18-year-old, 17-year-old Christian Pulisic and Emre Mor probably getting some minutes, although it'd be tough to see how all of those people can play at the same time. And now I think maybe they have a little too much depth, which is never. I guess it's going to be an issue for Thomas Tuchel to work that out. So as far as what to expect, I mean, I expect them to come in sort of in second position behind Bayern, who might not win the league by that much as last year, because Carlo Ancelotti is not sort of famous for doing going all out in the league and destroying teams, but still have too much talent. And Dortmund will have to play in the Champions League this season, so it'll take some toll on them. And then, of course, cup games, international games, all those things. But I think they're going to have a very successful season. But I think in the long term, I really like most of the moves they've made, except for Andre Schürrle, maybe. And in a couple of years, I could see them contending seriously and giving, as Bayern's sort of main big stars the age out, the Lewandowskis or the Hummelses and the Ribéry, Robben, if they age out of their prime or their post-prime, Dortmund can really give them a challenge, probably in two or 3 years. So that was the 10-minute Bundesliga preview for Borussia Dortmund. You can check us out on SoundCloud at BundesPL, or you can also follow us on Twitter at BambastenESL or at BundesPL. And you can check out our website at BundesPremierLeague.com. Thanks for listening. Stay tuned.